I got fired from a job and then started an online business, and 14 days later hit $37,000 cash collected. No paid ads, no sales call, and no fancy websites. And just so you know that it wasn't a fluke, over the next 18 months, I ran the same play 6 different times, every single time collecting between $25,000 and $40,000. And yes, I've also had some bigger wins, like landing a $45,000 sponsor for a brand new podcast, not once, but 2 years in a row. And here's the crazy part. Even though I had this at the time, I didn't actually use my YouTube channel to sell anything, which means if you don't have a big audience or fancy cameras or money to spend on ads, you too can have results like these, because everything that I did was simply done with my iPhone and an Instagram page of 3,000 followers. If you don't know who I am, my name is Justin, and I help ministry leaders reach their first million people with the gospel through online ministry. And on this channel specifically, I'm focusing all of my attention on something I call digital tent making. In other words, how do you make money by doing online ministry? That is the question. And on this channel, I'm going to be giving away the game. But first, let me give you a little context. When my wife and I first got married, we were carrying about $40,000 in student loan debt. It wasn't overwhelming like some of our friends who had 6-figure debts, but it was enough to feel the pressure. And still, we believed that God would provide. And he did for a while. Not long after we got married, I got called into full-time ministry. It was a paid position, but let's be real, everyone knows how ministry actually pays. You're not in it for the money, you're in it because you believe in the mission. And we did believe. So we packed up everything that we owned into a handful of suitcases and moved across the country. Slowly but surely, we're making a bit of progress on our student loan debt. That was until 2 years in, I felt God calling me to quit. Not to move to another job, not to climb the ladder, but to step away completely and serve without a paycheck. More specifically, I felt called to go into full-time ministry as an online missionary. And just to give you a bit of a crazy idea as how that was not logical at the time, I had about 300 subscribers on my YouTube channel, and my videos were averaging just about 30 views. So I came home and I told my wife what I believed God was asking me to do. We sat with it, we prayed with it, and with her blessing, we packed up again and moved across the country. No guaranteed income, no 5-year plan, just simply a calling from the Lord and a commitment to saying yes. For almost 5 years, I served in full-time ministry with 0 salary. And the only way that we were able to eat was because we lived with my in-laws for a couple of those years, and my wife was working to pay off the bills. Who can find a virtuous woman for her price is far above rubies, am I right? While my wife was working long hours to make ends meet, I gave myself completely to the people of the internet, making videos day in and day out. That's actually how I got this. Over the first few years, I made hundreds of videos and figured out how to make a thriving online ministry reaching millions of people from all over the world, and yet we were still broke. While I had cracked the code on how to impact people's life with the gospel through the internet, we were still living paycheck to paycheck. But don't worry, we figured things out. It would just take some time. In fact, one of my students had 621 followers and in 6 months generated over $100K in revenue while working a full-time job. We'll get to exactly how, but first, let's finish our story. Shortly after having our first child, God led us to serve as missionaries in Hawaii. And yes, it was as amazing as you would think, but my point in bringing this up is that God called us to one of the most beautiful and expensive places in the world. In other words, the tension between saying yes to God and taking care of my family went up another notch. Now, the only reason that we would even consider making such a bold move was because just before the call, I was invited to work on a creative project that would pay me $35,000. Now, the margins were razor sharp, but that contract felt like confirmation. It felt like God's way of saying, I've got you. Go ahead, step forward in faith. And so in faith, we went, we moved, we obeyed, and then it happened. That same contract that we were relying on was pulled. Nearly $35,000 of income gone overnight. I remember staring at my computer, trying to do the math, trying to figure out what do we cut, what do we sell, who do we call, and that feeling of panic slowly started to rise. I didn't know how we were going to make it. And honestly, this wasn't the first time that I wrestled with the question. It was probably the 100th time I asked myself, did I possibly misunderstand God? If God truly did call me, then why does it seem like everything is falling apart? Now, I don't know if you've ever felt something similar, if you know that feeling of anxiety, the instability, the constant uncertainty of how you're going to make ends meet, but it sucks. And in that moment, moment, it felt like just one more blow that made my doubts feel louder. But this is where the story starts to get better. I opened up Instagram, wrote a few honest posts about my story, and made a simple offer. There was no strategy, no campaign, no email list, just me offering to serve people with what I had learned up to that point in my journey. Long story short, I launched my first coaching campaign, what I now call digital tent making, and to my surprise, in just 2 weeks, we brought in $37,000. That moment changed everything, because not only were we able to pay off the remainder of our debts, not only could we continue to serve as underpaid missionaries, but my wife finally got to become a full-time mom, something that we had dreamed of and prayed for. And like I said, the wildest part is that this was not a one-time thing. I've actually run this strategy 6 different times, each time bringing in between $25,000 and $35,000. Learning how to do digital tent making has allowed me the freedom to fulfill my call as a missionary full time, to volunteer in my local church, and to simply wake up each day with one question on my mind: what can I do to advance the kingdom of God? Eventually, other pastors and ministry leaders started reaching out. They were watching quietly, and they were starting to ask, how did you do this? And could I do this too? So I started teaching them. One of those leaders was Pastor Daniel. He pastored 2 churches, and like I said, only had 621 followers on Instagram. And yet, after going through this process, he made over $200,000 in 12 months while still pastoring full time. And now, here on this channel, I'm here to teach you. I'm starting this channel to help faithful leaders like you step into what I believe is the next frontier of gospel work. Because digital tent making is not just about getting rich. It's not just about hacking the algorithm. It's ultimately about freedom. The freedom to preach, the freedom to serve, the freedom to provide for your family while staying faithful to the call of God on your life. And so if you've ever felt the tension between ministry and money, if you've ever felt called but also feel stuck, and if you're wondering, is there a different way forward? There is, and I think that it's digital tent making. So before we jump into the strategies and tactics in the videos to come, I want to leave you with something that I want you to reflect on. The question is this: what topic or message do you never get tired of studying or sharing? Because with digital tent making, you can literally put 100% of your energy into sharing the message that you're most passionate about. You don't have to chase what's trending, not what's safe. You can do what you were uniquely called to share, and that's what we're going to show you how to do on this channel. If you're ready to skip the wait and jump in, I've created a 3-part workshop that breaks the entire approach down step by step. You'll find the link below this video, and I'd love to help you get started.